Hey folks, today we're going to be making this animated subscribe button, so without further ado, let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to do is enable a couple of add-ons that come shipped with Blender. The first one is called Extra Objects. You go into your user preferences, go to add-ons, and in the search bar type in Extra, activate this Add Mesh Extra Objects. The second add-on we're going to use is Images as Planes, so type in Images and then import export images as planes. Make sure that's active. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit Shift A, add, choose image as planes. I'm then going to select my image here, go to shadeless, import the image, and then we go here and then we select textured. I'm going to use this as a reference to edge model this bell icon here. You can screen capture this and then you can import that image into your Blender scene. I'm going to select this plane here, I'm going to hit G, X, and I'm just going to drag that so it's kind of centered. Let's just center it around here. I want the origin to be at the top here because we're going to animate this bell. I'll also go into side view and I'm just going to drag that, hit G, Y, hold control, and I'll snap it to about there. Hit numpad 1 to go into front view. I'm going to hide my camera. In the collections section, we're going to be using these icons here. If you click this button here and enable all of these here, then you're good to go. To model this, we'll start off with a plane, I guess. I might model half and we'll mirror it over using mirror modifier. So I'm going to hit Shift A, add mesh plane. I'll go into edit mode. I'm going to hit RX90 and then I'm going to hit S.1 to scale it down. Let's just cut it in half. Hit Control R to add this loop cut. I'm going to left click to select it in there and then I'm going to right click to cancel it to the center point. I'm going to hit number 1 for vertice mode. Up here you've got face select, you've got edge select, and you've got vertices select, or you can hit 1, 2, 3 retrospectively. So I'm going to delete these two vertices. I'm going to hit X, delete vertices. I'm going to go out of edit mode by hitting tab, go to the modifiers, and we'll add mirror modifier. I'll enable clipping too. So from here, if I go into X-ray view here, I should be able to see behind the object. So I'll go into edit mode. I'm just going to drag all these vertices down, G, Z, down to around about there. Drag these vertices all the way down to the bottom. I'm just going to add some loop cuts here. Hit G, X, and we'll drag this across to around about there. I'll add another loop cut here. Select this one, G, X, and we'll slide this across. Drag this one across, G, X. We'll drag this down to about there. Gonna hit another loop cut, and then on this point I'll hit G, X. The next reference point will be here. Control R, bring that to about there. We'll select this vertice, G, X. Now I want these two vertices to be exactly in line. I'm going to select these two and hit S, X, and then hit 0. And now they should be perfectly in line. From here I'll add one vertice in the middle and then we'll select this one and hit G, X, and we'll drag that out. I'll do the same again for here and for here. So I'll select this vertice, G, X, and we'll drag this out, and we'll drag this one out too, G, X, okay. We are going to be using a subdivision surface on this as well. It will smooth it out a lot better. Control R for a loop cut there, G, X, okay. We'll add another loop cut there, G, X. We just keep doing this until we've got a rough shape that matches. The closer to the original you can get it, the better really. So then I'll select this top vertice, G, Z, we'll just drag that up a bit. So I'll just select one of these vertices here, Shift D to duplicate. I'll put it there, then I'll hit E, we'll just drag this up to here. We'll select both of these, I'll then hit Control right click and it will add this plane here. So G, and then G. Also want these to be exactly in line with each other, so I'm going to select both of these vertices, hit S for scale, Z for the Z axis, and 0. Let's just grab this and we'll grab this. I'm going to hit Control R, we'll add a loop cut here. I'll then drag this up to around about there. We'll drag this down, G, we'll slide it down to around about there. I'm going to add a loop cut there, or add a loop cut there. G, bring this up, bring this one up, G, same as this one, and the same as this one. Okay, I'm happy with that so far. We're going to smooth this out with the subdivision surface modifier, so don't worry about these jagged edges. Shift D to duplicate that vertice, we'll place it there, we'll hit E, X, and we'll drag that all the way to the center. Then I'll select both of these, I'm going to hit E, Z, and we'll drag this down to around about there. Add a loop cut there, we'll then select this vertice, G, X, and we'll bring that across. We'll add another loop cut and another one there. We'll select this vertice, G, X, we'll bring this across there slightly, this one across, G, X, and then this one, GX. Okay, so I'll grab this center vertex and hit GZ. We'll drag this down to around about there. So now I'm going to add the subdivision surface on your modifier stack with that object selected. I go to modifiers and I'm going to hit subdivision surface. Go back into front view by hitting numpad 1. Now we're going to tighten these corners up. So go into edit mode, we'll hit Control R, we'll add a loop cut there. Control R, we'll add a loop cut here to bring that down. Control R, tighten these up here, tighten that up there, tighten this up here. Okay. Maybe these can come out slightly, so I might select all of these and hit GX. Just bring them out slightly. This one too, GX, bring this out, and we'll tighten up this corner by adding these container loops. Control R, E, and then F to flip. That should tighten up that corner. Control R, I'm going to left click that in, I'm going to hit E, and then Control R, and we'll add one here as well. Okay, it's not looking too great down here. G, Z. Got to shimmy this about a bit until it looks a bit more presentable. Okay, maybe I'll take these up slightly, G, Z, and we'll take these up slightly as well, GX, just shimmying it around. Okay, I'm kind of happy with that. For these ones up here, let's just add a loop cut here, we'll bring that in, we'll add a loop cut here, we'll take this one out, add a loop cut here, then E, F. I'll do the same up here, Control R, click that in, and then E. Okay, so that's the bell icon, and it should pivot from the top. Quickly model this part here, Shift A, add mesh plane, go into edit mode, RX90, R45, S.1 to scale it in by 0.1. I'm also going to go out of edit mode, so I'm going to hide this item, I'm going to rename it to bell. And then we'll drag this across on the x-axis, so this piece is kind of centered. Hit G, Z, go into X-ray mode so we can see what we're doing here. GX, I'll just drag this across so it's nice and centered. Scale this down, GZ, so it's around about there. I'm going to hit Control A and apply the scale. I go into edit mode, and then I'm going to hit I to inset around about here. Okay, delete these vertices here. Select these top two. I'm going to hit X, delete vertices. I'll then select this vertex. I'm going to hit GG, we'll drag this down to around about there. Select this one, hit GG, and we'll slide this vertex down to about there. Reactivate the bell icon. Okay, there's our two elements. I want to center this plane here. Let's just go to here. Okay, let's just ensure that all my normals are correct. To do that, we select everything. I'll go here and we'll go to face orientation. I'll select a vertex here. I'm going to hover the mouse over it and hit L, and that will select all the vertices. I'm going to go to mesh, normals, and flip. Drag this bell across, GX. Select this object, I'll hit GX, and we'll drag this over there. So now I'm going to add the typeface, so I'm going to hit Shift C to recenter my cursor, hit Shift A, add text, RX90, tab into edit mode, and I'm going to type in subscribe. We'll go to our text data tab over here. I'm going to select a different font. I'm going to select Arimo regular. You can choose whatever font you want. This one's pretty close to the font used here. It's not exactly the same, but it will do. And then I'll also change my paragraph alignment from left to center. I'll then hit GZ, and I'll bring this down to around about there. I'll then scale it down, roughly match it up. It doesn't have to be perfect, but get it as close as you can. Most people won't notice the smaller details like this. Now we're actually going to make two versions of this, so I'm going to hit Shift D, and we'll duplicate this. The first text I'm going to rename subscribed. The second text object I'm going to just name subscribe. Now we're going to make a glass dome for this object here. So I'm going to name this one to subscribe. I'm going to mute that one and enable this one. Let's just get rid of this reference now. We don't need that anymore. I'm going to hit Shift A, so you go to mesh and you select round cube. Don't click anything in the screen because you get this menu, and if you click anywhere, that menu will disappear, and then we can't change this. Let's just do that again. Shift A, add mesh, round cube, and then we've got this menu here, and we set the radius to 1. Keep the vertex count rather low at the moment. We are going to scale this down, get rid of that. go into X-ray mode, hit G, Z, and we're going to drag this down to around about there. And then go into edit mode, hit S. We'll scale this down to around about there. I'm going to use the mirror modifier, but before we do that, I'm going to split this center line here with all those vertices selected in X-ray view. I'm going to hit Control B, and that's going to split that edge, and then scroll the middle mouse wheel. We've got one line in the middle. We'll have these very close to each other, and then I'll click that into place. We're going to select all these vertices here. I'll hit Control plus, hit G, X, and hold down Control. I'm going to drag these out to about here, and we'll do exactly the same for this side. Control plus, G, X, hold down Control to snap it to around about there. Hit G, X, and we'll drag that till it touches this mark here, and then I'll do the same for here. G, X, and we'll drag this to around about there. I'm going to have to bring these in now. G, X, drag this to around about there. I'll then select this object and G, X, and we'll drag this in. And the subscribe, G, X, and we'll drag this across. Maybe scale it down. Okay. I'll probably scale this bell down. G, Z, and then we'll just drag this down. So it's all roughly kind of centered. Now we've got to tackle the back, make sure X-ray mode is on. I'm then going to select all these middle vertices here, and again I'm going to hit Control B, and we'll drag that across so there's 3 cuts. And then select all these vertices, select any one of these vertices, maybe this one here, and then we're going to change the pivot point to active element, and then I'm going to hit SY0. And what that does, it will scale that entire back face to the same level as this active element here. I'm going to hit Z and then shade smooth, and then Control 2 to add subdivision surface. I'm going to X-ray view. Also, I'm going to hit SY.5 to scale it in, and then Control A to apply the scale. I'll rename this one Glass 1. I'll then hit Shift D, and we'll just rename this Glass 0. Hide Glass 1. I'm going to hide the subscribed. I'm going to unhide the subscribe, the same as the bell icon, and we'll rename this plane to arrow. I'm going to hide the arrow too. Select this object here, go into edit mode, make sure you're on X-ray view, change the pivot point back to median point. I'll then select all these vertices. I'm going to hit G, X, and hold down Control, and then let's snap it. Select all these, G, X, Control. The font looks a tiny bit off center, so I'm going to hit G, X, and we'll drag this across around about there. Okay, I'm happy with that. Select this object, go out of X-ray view, go into face select, select this corner piece, hit Control, Shift, left click, select this corner piece, and that will select this whole back face here. And then hit Control plus to increase the selection, and maybe Control plus one more time. Go into side view, hit G, Y, and Control, and I'll just snap that to the grid, so around about there. I'm going to do the same for the other object. Glass 1. With that object selected, select this back face. Again, you can select this face here, then Control Shift, and then Control plus. We'll go into the side view, and then we'll just drag this across GY. Now we'll add a few basic materials to this. The first material, we'll call this glass. The second material, we'll call it backing. The glass should be a fairly straightforward material. Let's go into rendered view so we can see what we're doing here. Go 100% transmission. We'll turn the roughness down, and I'm also going to do a little hack here just to make it render a bit better without shadows. Input, and we'll go for light path, and then Shift A, add shader, mix shader. Shift A, shader, transparent shader. Put the transparent into the bottom. We'll go transmission ray. And for the backing, if I go into edit mode, I'll select this material. I'm going to assign it to the back piece, so click assign. And just so we can see the difference in the viewport, I've set the glass to like a blue tinge, and we'll also give it kind of a transparency with the alpha. The back material, let's just set that to a darker colour so we can see what we're doing. Go back into rendered view. For the backing material, I'm going to set this to pitch black. I'm going to turn the roughness down to maybe 0.15. With the subscribe text font, we'll add a material, and this can be emission. With that selected, we go to our emission colour here. Make sure your strength is set to 2, and we'll change the colour to pure bright white. We're also going to give this a bit of thickness as well. Mute the glass. We'll select the subscribe button. We'll go to our font object, give it some thickness. by going to geometry and extrude 1, 2, 3, maybe 0.4. I'm going to drag that on the y-axis. Let's make this a bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. GY, and then we'll just drag that forward. And we'll do the same for this object here. Extrude 0.4 GY. Excellent. So we need to set up the materials for this second bubble here. The first material was the glass. The second material was the backing. And then we just apply the backing. Go into edit mode, make sure all your back faces are selected, and select your backing and click the sign. There we go. And the subscribe button, that's already set to emission, but this one we need to set to emission. There we go. So now all those materials should be set up. So now what we need to do is set up the bell icon, delete this bell icon reference image. We'll go to the bell, go to side view, and then I'm going to add a solidify modifier. So we'll give that a bit of thickness. Set the offset to 0, and then hit GY holding down control, just so it's roughly the same thickness as the font. And I'll do the same for this object here. Modifier, solidify, set that to 0, and then add thickness, GY, bring that forward. So both of these objects, the bell and the arrow, they need a material. We can set the material here or here, and of course we'll set it to emission. The bell icon we'll set to emission. Let's just check. That's looking quite good. To get more reflections as well, I'm going to turn the metallic up to maybe 0.25. That'll give us more reflection. I'm going to use a custom HDRI for the background scene. For that, I'll go from in my shader editor, I'll select my world, and then if you enable the node wrangler here, so you go to edit, preferences, add-ons, and then type in node, and then enable the node wrangler. Once you've done that, you can select this item and hit Control T, and that'll add this chain of nodes, which makes it easier to just open up your HDRI. So I've selected my HDRI. This is one I made from an old project. It's going to take a while to load because it's quite a big HDRI. It's just an old sci-fi scene, and I know the orientation of this is supposed to be -90. This HDRI, I'll add it onto my Patreon. You can download it from there if you want, or alternatively just go to HDRI Haven, or Polyhaven I think it's called now, and you can download HDRIs for free. So I'm going to go into my render properties. I'm going to go to film and transparent. I'm going to select my camera, so enable my camera. I've set it to 24mm, and I'm going to bring it forward to my subscribe button is an adequate size. I'll also drag my camera up so the subscribe button is kind of at the bottom. It's probably a bit big, but this is just a demo. You can edit the size of it to suit your needs. So that's roughly the scene set up. Now we just need to set up this into collections. All of these objects, the arrow, bell, the subscribed, and the glass, I'm going to move into a separate collection. So M for move, add collection, and we'll call it subscribed. So we'll add that into subscribed. We'll just mute that quick. We'll enable these two, and then these two objects, the glass 0 and the subscribe, I'll then move those into another collection, and we'll call this subscribe. We'll select this arrow, so that's in its own collection, and that's in its own collection. Now I want to make sure that the arrow, the bell, and the subscribed are all selected, and then I'm going to shift select the glass object and then hit Control P, so parent, keep transform. So now when I just select this object, they're all going to follow it. I'm going to do the same for this small subscribe buttons. I've got the subscribe button selected, shift left click, select the glass object, and then I'm going to hit Control P, set parent, set object, keep transform. So now when I select this object, the subscribe follows with it. So we'll set our scene. It's going to be 30 frames per second. We'll set the render settings, sampling. I'll just set this noise threshold 0.025 and the max samples to 512. Where we've got 30 frames per second, we're going to want motion blur with this. Select motion blur, and where it's 30 frames per second, proper calculation for that will be double. So that will be 0.6. Half of 0.6 is 30. So now what we do is we change our scene frame to say 120 frames. I'm also going to set these dead center. At the moment they're off, so I'm going to hit G, Z, take that up to center point. In fact, We'll select that object and I'm going to hit 0. We'll select this object, I'm going to hit 0. So we're going to mute the subscribe, select this object. So on frame 1, we're going to camera view, I'm going to hit G, Z and hold down control, and then we'll just snap this down to about there. I'm going to hit I for location, and then I'll go to frame, let's say frame 10. I'm going to hit G, Z, we'll take this back up to the center, and then hit I for location, play that back. So on frame 30, I'm going to add the quick explode modifier. We'll go to Object, Quick Effects, Quick Explode. It's not going to look much to start with. On our modifiers, we can either click this button, so it goes to the particle system, or you can click here. We want the start frame to be on frame 30, the end frame 32, and we'll give it a lifetime of 60. So then if I go back, push play, okay. On the velocity, I'm going to set this to 4. I'll set the randomize to 4. I'll also give it rotation. So I'm going to set this to 1. I'm going to set this to 1. I'm going to add dynamic. And we'll go back and push play. Okay. Maybe I'll set the pieces to 500. Maybe I could turn the velocity down slightly to maybe 2. Let's see what happens there. Maybe I'll turn the randomize down to 2. Okay, I'm happy with that. So now what I want to do is I want to switch this out with the other one to say it's subscribed. So if this starts on frame 30, let's just check. Yeah, so frame 30. So we give it a random lifetime of 0.5, and what that does is the particles will disappear randomly within this 60 frame time limit. So if the frame starts at 30, add 60 onto 30, that's 90, and there's an extra 2 there, so that's 92. So the frames will disappear between 32 and frame 92 at a rate of 0.5. Okay, so we got this. Let's progress. We're going to want this to disappear. I want to keep it going for a few frames, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll keep it visible, and then on the 36th frame, I want it to disappear. So I'm going to go to visibility, on viewport and render. I'm going to select this button for add a keyframe and this button to add a keyframe. I'll skip forward 1 frame, and then I'm going to make that disappear from viewport and render. So what we've got is that explodes and the text disappears. So on frame 36, the text is gone. On frame 35 you can see it. So now on the subscribed collection, we select the glass and we go to object settings. On frame 35 we do not want to see the glass, so we mute those on viewport and render. We skip forward 1 frame, and now we do want to see them on viewport and render. So we skip back 1 frame. It's going to be the same for the arrow, the bell and the subscribe. So we select for arrow, we mute the arrow, add keyframes, go to the bell, we'll mute those, we'll add keyframes, we go to subscribe, we mute those and we add keyframes, and then we skip forward 1 frame and we go to subscribe. Now we do want to see them, so we add keyframes there, we check the boxes. We want to see the bell icon as well, we'll add a keyframe, and we want to see the arrow and we add 2 keyframes there. So now the subscribe button disappears and the other items should appear. Why have they gone all glitchy? This can happen sometimes. So if these glitch out, just select it, go into edit mode, select that one, go into edit mode and tap back out, and the arrow, go into edit mode and tap out, and it should bring it back to life. There we go. So now we're going to add another effect. We're going to add a force field. So just before it switches to subscribed, I'm going to add a force field to make these particles accelerate out, almost like a shockwave emitted from this object. So I'm going to hit Shift A, add force field and force. So then on frame 32, we'll go to the force field settings and we'll go to strength. I'm going to hit 0. I'll add a keyframe here, and then we'll go to frame 36 and we'll go maybe add 100 and we'll add a keyframe there. Let's just see what effect that has. We'll bake these particle systems in. So I've added all these elements here. We'll go to the particle settings, I'll go back. Before you bake it, save your file. I've already saved mine, I'm going to save it again. Let's go to the cache, Now what this will do, if you click use library path, this will create a separate file in the same location as where you've got your blend file, and it will save a series of files as a cache. But this is a reasonably small project, so I'm going to deselect this, and this will actually save the cache within the blend file itself. So I'm going to click bake all dynamics. Now when I push play, boom. I'm also going to animate this so it disappears. So let's say frame 90 is the end frame. On frame 80, I'm going to add a location, so I location, and then on the last frame, go into camera view, so on frame 90, G, C, and I'll drag that down to there, and hit a location, so the whole sequence is this. Okay, one thing we can do to improve this, so if we select our particles, go into modifiers, add modifier, and we go solidify, and now these pieces are solid. Let's go even thickness. You can also add a bevel modifier. I have been having some errors with the bevel modifier, but let's try it anyway. Let's see what happens. So we'll add a bevel modifier at 0.0025. Just to sharpen up the edges, maybe 0.001. Increase the segments. This will slow your computer down. Obviously, you can make these elements a lot smaller. If you think that's too big for your scene, you can change your camera to a different focal length, change your distance. You just make it so it suits your needs. Let's animate the bell icon now. This is what we've got so far. So what I'm going to do is select the bell. I'm going to drag this across here. If you can't find a window like this, you go to the top left hand corner till you see this crosshair, drag it across, and then with this item here, we go to graph editor. That's what we're going to be using. The bell appears on frame 36. So select the bell on frame 36. We want it to rotate on the y-axis. So on frame 36, I'm going to add a keyframe on the y-axis. We'll go over to here on our graph editor, expand this window out here until you see bell action transform, and we want the Y-Euler rotation selected. So with that selected, we'll go to modifiers, we'll add a modifier, and we'll add built-in function. And if we push play right off the bat, you can see it's just wobbling about. We want it to gradually start wobbling on frame 36, make it last for a second, and then stop wobbling. In order to do that, we go to restrict frame range, so it starts on frame 36, and we want it to go for a second, which is 30 frames, so it will end on frame 66. And then we want to ease in, blend it in over a period of 10 frames, and blend it out over a period of 10 frames. Maybe we'll turn the amplitude down because it looks like it could be a bit harsh. Let's see what we got here. One thing we're going to do is we'll set our output. So we go to our output here, and you select where you want to save your file, your cache. Make sure you've got RGBA selected for red, green, blue and alpha, and set it to PNG, and then hit Control F12, and this will render out your image sequence, which is 90 frames long. And then when you've got your image sequence, go into your video editor. I use DaVinci Resolve. You can use Blender or Adobe or Final Cut, whatever your video editor of choice is, and then select all your images, drag them into your timeline. When you're in your video editor, you can resize, scale, and do whatever you need to do to make it fit your scene. That's it in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you found value in it, please consider liking and subscribing. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.